In a mysterious land, a place forgotten by time, lives one of nature's greatest secrets. Many believe it's only a legend, but there are those who have seen it, appearing out of mist and jungle like a ghost, to haunt this exotic, emerald world as a living reminder of nature's power and magic. At the beginning of time, the whole world was white with ice and snow. Then Raven flew down from the heavens and made the world green, as it is now. But he also wanted to make something to remind him of the beginning and its whiteness. So on these islands, he went among the bears, the black bears, and every 10th one he turned white. That way he could look at them and remember the world as it once was. And then Raven issued a decree. The white bears would live here forever in peace. On the Pacific coast of Canada, 700 miles north of Vancouver, British Columbia, and impossible to reach except by boat or airplane, lie the Mid-Coast Islands. It's a place so isolated, so removed, it's called the Forgotten Coast. Since the last ice age, these islands have remained uninhabited, except for First Nations people who have thrived here in one of the richest, most diverse ecosystems on Earth. It's a rugged, wild landscape of towering slopes, deep fjords, and lush valleys, teeming with life, the most abundant to be found anywhere in North America. On every shoreline, a jungle of moss-laden old-growth forest forms an impenetrable barrier. Behind it, a prehistoric world is revealed. These coniferous giants are the last reminder of a forest of cedar and spruce that once carpeted the earth. But in this land of giants, only the sea rules. Here, a delicate interplay between fresh and salt water nurtures hundreds of species. From the microscopic to the majestic. Here, the raw, wild power of nature inspired the creation of one of the world's most distinct cultures. Cedar burial boxes are hidden throughout this island labyrinth. Ancient remains of the forefathers of the Tsimshian First Nation, who have called this place home since the Raven first turned this world green. In all of ancient America, only the cultures of the Aztec and Inca equal the sophistication of the Tsimshian, one of many Northwest tribes who embraced this rich land and celebrated it in a rich culture. In their world, nature is a generous spirit, capable of transforming itself into living, breathing entities to ensure the constant return of abundant food resources, like the salmon. Today, the Kitasoo live in the village of Klemtu, the only human presence for hundreds of miles in any direction. On the surface, a modern, thriving community. But life here is, as it's always been, a daily ritual of harvesting nature's bounty. Like all life on the mid-coast, salmon is the primary food source in Klemtu, still smoked the old way, in cedar shacks over cedar shakes for hours on end. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca, traditional symbols of the band, and the potlatch, an ancient celebration to welcome new chiefs or remember old ghosts, also remain important and sacred. The Mid-Coast Islands are home, a place where nature is rich and tangible. To the Kitasoo, it is always there, with one exception.
As old as I am, I've never seen a live one, but my son has seen it, you know.
That's when I seen it in Indian River. There was a whole bunch of us that stopped then to watch it.
I've only saw it twice, and that's the only time I've seen it, not very close.
It just never happened, you know, and I never really knew about them myself either, you know, and I never ever went looking for it.
Mysterious, elusive. Even the people who live here have rarely seen it. And those lucky enough to meet the ghost bear of the rainforest, so says another legend, are given the gift of predicting the future. In the land of the Kitasoo, all animals have a special significance. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca are powerful symbols of life in one of the richest and wildest places on Earth. But the ghost bear is special. It defines this land and the people, as rare as the bear itself.
The bear is part of the symbol of the Kitasoo, and it's a very, very sacred symbol to us. It's part of our strength, just like the symbol of our four crests we have. It's a symbol of where we get our strength. I saw the first white bear as a child. That's where I first seen my white bear.
Only here, in the rainforests of the Mid-Coast Islands, lives a unique subspecies of the black bear, so isolated for so long from mainland bears that every 10th one, as says the legend, is indeed white. This 5-year-old male, a teenager in bear years, is not an albino, or even a cousin of the polar bear. Biologists have tried for over a century to solve the riddle of how and why its coat turned white, with no success. We don't even know how many there are, appropriate characteristics for a ghost. All we know for sure is that they only live here, in a world, as the Kitasoo say, put together by the raven. Our teenager appears to be enjoying a good scratch, but he's actually marking his home territory. Marked trees are signposts in the bear community and a practical way to prevent confrontations before they occur. The scent he leaves on this tree will let other bears know whose home this is and how big the current resident is. In nature, size is everything, and if a larger, older bear does come along, he too might mark this tree, telling our teenager it might be wise to move on. It's a lesson learned well by the Kitasoo, who clearly marked their own territory here many centuries ago.
We're in a place known to us Kitasoo as this Jew, and it's a gathering place of the Kitasoo people. It's an identity thing, you know, with our people. I only knew of it maybe when I was about 16 or 17, and I was out trapping with my father out here, and he brought me here too, and that was the first I ever saw this. You know, like it's a last remaining of what our ancestors had when we lived all around this area. It's all part of our territory, the whole thing, everything, you know, like we exist from the sea. We live on the land.
Bears do rely heavily on food from the sea, especially during the annual salmon spawn. But right now, the streams are too low, and all a bear or fish can do is wait for the late summer rains to fill them up. Some salmon have made headway, and catching the early arrivals is quite possible, if he can find one that matches his own size. It's also possible this 2-year-old cub has a white sister, brother, mother, or father. Although the origin of the recessive gene that turned the black bear's coat white remains a scientific question mark, fact is, the black bears here can and do create white offspring. In the bear hierarchy, white or black makes no difference, and an older bear is just a bigger bear who's found someone poaching his territory. For the cub, it means the end of a day's fishing. Peering down from their treetop vantage points, bald eagles also wait eagerly for the salmon spawn to really begin. If our teenager appears nervous, it's not because hunters are stalking the forest. Few do, but hunting is allowed here. And although the white bear is protected by law, black bears also carry the recessive white gene. Problem is, how would you know? The Kitasoo have never hunted the white bear. and elders still tell stories about its sacred spirit.
I've always heard them talking about a white bear. That's why my grandparents used to tell me, said not to hurt them or do anything to them because maybe there's something special about them. There's a reason why they're different from the others.
Only here, bears have no fear of humans and may have no concept of fear at all. When he does see us, he makes a habit of looking us straight in the eye. In all of nature, there is, perhaps, no experience like it. These temperate rainforests produce 4 times more life than any other on Earth. They exist because these islands are the first landmass moisture-laden winds hit after an unbroken 9,000-mile journey across the Pacific Ocean, which means a massive amount of rainfall, over 50 feet of it a year. From California to Alaska, the entire West Coast was once a continuous, gigantic forest. But other than here, most of it is long gone. Tall stands of ancient timber dominate the landscape, denying sunlight and easy access. In this temperate jungle, only 4-legged creatures can travel easily. Where sunlight does break through, mostly along stream banks and tidal flats, over 500 varieties of flowers, shrubs, and bushes thrive, nurturing man, beast, and the forest itself. But without a doubt, the red cedar is the tree of life. Hundreds of years of slow growth create a wood soft, pliable, yet so straight-grained, the Kitasoo learned to peel off 2-inch planks 20 feet long, leaving these trees alive to grow for another millennium. 1,000 years before Christianity, the Kitasoo were building cedar-hewn houses, dugout canoes, and carving into history one of the world's great artistic cultures.
Everything that makes us what we are is all around us. The medicines they gather from the forests, the food they gather from the seas. It sustained our people for, thousands and thousands of years. If you talk about the food that you get out of the ocean, the medicines and the materials that you get from the forest, they're all important. They played an important role in our people for as long as our people have been here.
If you take the land away from me, then I may be gone too, because the land looks after everything, the rivers, meat, berries, traditional items such as herbs that we use for medicine. All of that, are nurtured by the land.
By reaping only what the rain and sea had sown, the most complex civilization to ever emerge without benefit of agriculture was created here. Living from nature, they depended on the earth for signs, like a bear's arrival on the coast. Rarely will the white bear come down from the mountains, preferring to feast on berries and insects until the salmon spawn beckons. Yet wherever it goes, the bear is a guide and a teacher.
Well, it represents many things. Now, the bear tells you that there are berries there. The bear tells you because of their presence there that there's salmon-bearing river. All of those things, you know, those are, when you see a bear, it's a good sign that there's life somewhere, you know, that indicates salmon berries and stuff that, you know, nobody would know of.
In a few short months, hibernation begins, and this scarred 15-year-old's instincts have moved into overdrive, telling him it's time to eat as many fish as possible, as fast as possible. During the salmon spawn, a bear will consume about 700 fish, increasing his body fat by almost 40%. When this old veteran settles down in his winter den, he'll sleep until spring, burning off the body fat he's storing up now. Females will give birth during hibernation, and the cubs must nourish themselves on their mother's enriched high-fat milk until she wakes up. Life has been good to our veteran. He's seen a lot of summers come and go, and should live to see many more. Bears in the wild can live almost 25 years, but here, with so much food around, they have a good chance of living a lot longer. Some bears never fish at all, keeping an eye on smaller bears' success instead. It's not lazy. For a big bear, just practical. But our veteran shouldn't worry. At over 400 pounds, he's a big bear. Summer is the only season when rainfall is measured in inches rather than feet, making streams unpredictably rise and fall and stalling the salmon's run for home. The best time to catch them is yet to come. Black bears rarely forage in the heat of the day, preferring early morning or evening to feed. Their black coats soak up the hot sun like a sponge, and summer days are better spent in the cool forest canopy, fast asleep. A white bear with a white coat doesn't have as much of a problem with the heat, giving him more opportunities to feed undisturbed. Today, the sun is too hot even for our teenager, but he has his own ideas about cooling off. Time off is a concept even a bear understands. He should enjoy it while he can. Soon enough, this pool will be teeming with thousands of visitors. As the Kitasoo say, they live on the land, but live from the sea. Halibut and herring, crab, prawns, sea urchins, and sea cucumber are harvested throughout the year. But the mainstay of all life in these islands is the salmon. And right now, everyone and everything waits for its annual return.
I can understand why they picked this area for their main village site. They have resources here available for them year-round. Salmon not only nourished our people, it also gave us the opportunity to trade with other communities for things such as grease and soap berries and seaweed. You know, there are other things that we don't have that aren't local to our territory here, and it gave us that opportunity to travel to other places and trade.
We can't see it yet, but out there, in the depths of the Pacific, a movable feast is coming right at us. The orca have traveled far to be the first in a long line of animals to gorge on massive numbers of spawning salmon. The life of the salmon is actually just one long round trip. A patient kingfisher pauses to check their progress. In this stream, there are now more than enough salmon to go around. Five species of salmon, sockeye and coho, chinook, chum, and pink, return in the millions each year to these islands to lay their eggs. Somehow, after traveling thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean, they've returned to the exact same streams they left 4 years ago, weighing less than an ounce. It's another mystery that science has yet to solve. Some believe they find their way home by smell. Decaying earth, rotting logs, salty mists, and wildflower blooms. Perhaps it's the rainforest they smell. Bears have the keenest sense of smell of any mammal. In fact, their face is almost all nose, and for them, the scent of salmon must be overpowering. They're also extremely intelligent animals. Although still young in bear years, our teenager has been around long enough to know where the stream is shallow and most likely to be packed with fish. His size is deceiving. Over a short distance, he can outrun a racehorse, but catching a sleek fish in calm water is destined for failure from the start. This bear knows a better spot. The Kitasoo know the good fishing spots too. Long before the use of nets, they built massive fish traps, piling rocks by hand, one by one, at the mouths of streams. At low tide, the salmon were trapped inside the shallow enclosure, allowing the Kitasoo to harvest them easily without needing a net, hook, or spear. It was a naturally practical idea. A young bald eagle is also taking advantage of the salmon's upstream struggle. He'd better, or he too could risk not surviving the winter. And winter is not far away. In the land of the ghost bear, life is complex and magical, ancient and timeless. Only nature decides when the rules will change. The autumn rains have arrived, and with them, no guarantee they'll ever end. Soon the downpour will fill the streams right up, and this time they'll stay up. The salmon harvest is about to begin. The autumn rains have arrived and will last until spring, with month after month passing without a sign of the sun. In the mystical half-light that remains, days are marked only by the cycles of the rain's intensity. Ferociously wet and relentlessly gray. Blurred by thick mist and fog, the separation between forest and ocean becomes indistinguishable. But in nature, there is no separation, and every living thing on the Rain Coast ultimately responds to the same ecological rhythm. For the bear, nature's timing is perfect, and now that the runoff remains constant, the life cycle of the rainforest is at its height. The spawn is gorging season for a lot of animals, and for all of them, finally, the salmon are on the move. If this black bear isn't careful, he could easily slip and drown, but he doesn't miss a step. Even for bears, fishing is a learned experience, with instincts enhanced by education. This bear has probably fished here since he was a cub and memorized every submerged rock ledge and eddy in this canyon. Places only this bear would know, where exhausted salmon escape the relentless current in calmer water, sandwiched between boulders. In there, salmon are served buffet style. The feast is so rich, bears discriminate between male and female salmon, ignoring the males to gorge on the rich red roe of females. They'll usually eat 3 or 4 times a day, resting for long periods in between, but instincts remind them never to relax. Next year's salmon spawn will be a long time coming. The Kitasoo have been fishing these waters for almost as long as the bears. And their instincts, too, are telling them it's time to stock up.
Food fishing is important for our community. We need this out here just to survive, to continue to live in the community as remote as ours. My father-in-law is fishing with me, so we're going to split it between the two of us. This area is actually rich in all sorts of sea resources. There's halibut to be caught out here, and rock cod, and there's spring salmon. As long as there have been Kitasoo, they've used this bay.
Our veteran has found his good fishing spot too. Better yet, he's eating undisturbed, and it's fairly obvious why. His scarred nose bears the mark of a long and eventful life. For 15 years, he's remained king of the world. his world. The salmon struggle comes at a price, and fish that have injured themselves on rocks are everywhere. This 10-pound sockeye will do just fine. His paws are the size of baseball gloves, but they have the dexterity of human hands, allowing him to handle a salmon like a ground ball. Perhaps bears are closer to us than we'd like to think. The Kitasoo people think so. In their world, nature is a friend, and animals have spirits and can speak. It is a timeless state of grace, perfect, fragile, and traditionally maintained.
I think that when I come out here now, it's just starting to begin to get that feeling of tradition that we have out here. It's very important. You talk to the elders and they'll tell you that it sustained our people for, thousands and thousands of years.
To the outside world, the white bear is another of nature's curiosities, and not, as it should be, a living reflection of ancient times, when legends were born of animals offering us the power of their knowledge. For the modern world, this bear is truly a ghost. The first salmon run of the season has been a good one, with more to come. Percy Starr's son Godfrey has pulled over 800 sockeye out of Kitasoo Bay, enough to keep many in the community busy canning and smoking into the fall. For these fishermen, it's time to head home. Autumn adds new colors to the spectrum of the rainforest. And as the salmon run begins to slow, so too does the life cycle of these islands, but not the streams. Their thunder will continue to roll down to the sea until summer returns. It's been a good fishing season for our teenager, too. After gaining almost 60 pounds in 6 weeks, he's stuffed with fish, and probably not too interested in eating another one for quite a while. He's very content and well prepared for winter. When he wakes up in the spring, he'll discover the world exactly as he left it. Except he'll be hungry once again. For the people in Klemtu, winter's perpetual rainstorms mark the longest season of the year. But the salmon will see them through. Before arriving home, fishing boats radio ahead, letting the community know they're loaded with fish and to come down to the docks to share in the harvest. Families take only what they need, jarring, canning, smoking, and freezing their primary food supply, which should last until next year. By the end of the spawn, hundreds of dead salmon have been flushed downstream, washing up on the island's rocky coastline and tidal flats. Down here, the scavenging is always good, and fresh salmon carcass deposited by the tide is about as close a bear can get to home delivery. Here in their island fortress, forgotten by time, the white bear lives happily in peace, just as the raven guaranteed over 10,000 years ago. There's an old Kitasoo story about a woman who married a bear. She was very beautiful, but young and foolish. One day, while watching a bear struggling to catch fish in a deep pool, she laughed at him, not knowing he hadn't eaten in days. The elders became angry and forced the woman to marry the bear and take care of him. At first, she was very unhappy, but she grew to love the bear and bore him 2 children, a boy and a girl. These were the first people to live in this place, and they promised never to laugh at nature again. No one really knows how or why its coat turned white. We don't even know how many exist. All we do know is what the Kitasoo have known since the beginning of time. The ghost bear haunts this rainforest, reminding all of us how nature once was, and at least here, still is.
It's the ultimate nightmare. Getting stranded in the wilderness. No tent, no sleeping bag. Worst of all, no food or water. Something must be edible here, but what? That's the question these 6 people must answer. Desk jockeys and decorators, they've been dropped into the northern Ontario bush. To survive, they need to find plants and protein out here, no matter what it tastes like, without salt, sugar, or supermarkets. Their guide is an expert who usually trains the military.
Mother Nature does not care if you live or die.
They have just 48 hours to find something worth eating. They have to discover the secret to eating wild. Every year, people get lost in the Canadian wilderness. Some spend days wandering hungry, unable to find anything to eat.
You see the trail?
And that's crazy, according to Gino Ferry. He trains the military how to survive in the bush. He thinks there's always enough to eat. The question is whether you know where to look.
We'll see what nature has to offer. Sometimes there's lots here, sometimes there isn't. It's just a crapshoot. You get what you get. Right here?
Gino has agreed to share his expertise with 6 volunteers we've chosen. None of them know anything about surviving in the bush.
Give you a hint.
They've left the comfort of Toronto for Bancroft in Northern Ontario. They are doctors, musicians, nurses, and even an interior designer. They have no idea what they can eat here, or even what can keep them alive.
Yeah, it would be pretty exciting. My family's kind of used to me doing kind of strange things, but
it's kind of nice to be out, going from drinking a cappuccino the day before to drinking yarrow root tea from a tin cup today.
I wanted to be on TV. I think that's pretty cool. Doing that surviving thing. You know, Survivor's pretty big. This is kind of a lead way, I think, to it. Sort of the same thing almost, as long as they don't get voted off.
I don't want to eat any bugs. I'll eat a frog if I have to, a snake, I guess. I didn't come to be on Fear Factor.
My family responded like, "What are you, crazy? There's bears up there."
I like to do new things all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll give anything a go. People are a bit weirded out by it, and it is pretty kooky.
But Gino will need help with these greenhorns, so he counts on the assistance of Jennifer Kahn and Mike Hops.
A lot more crunching. It's like 300 ants.
It's 9 a.m. The students have been hiking for 3 hours looking for something to call breakfast. But their first discovery doesn't look very filling.
Hey, folks. Bring him here for a minute.
Oh, look at that one.
Take this plant in front of you, right here.
This one?
The shiny one?
No, the shiny one. Yep, yep, the little one. Usually has a little red berry on it.
Oh.
Chew it.
Hawthorn?
Crush it.
Hawthorn?
No, no. Chew it. Now this is your best tea that you'll ever make. What does it taste like?
Oh, peppermint.
It's called winter green.
Oh.
The team wants food, but water is what they need.
The liquids you need for obvious reasons. If you lose 5% of your liquid, you're going to start hallucinating, you're going to develop headaches, you're going to develop nausea, and you'll get sick.
So Gino leads the group to a lake where they can find water and build shelter. But not everybody likes the idea of sleeping closely with 6 strangers. The issue is 2 shelters or 1.
I think it'd be better to have 2. Yeah, because there's a good area over here, another one here, and maybe have like a central fire or a couple fires going.
what do you think, Gino? Should we make 1 or?
It's going to be your call. You're going to have to make the decision.
I think 1 is a great idea with that fire pit right there, radiating the heat off the rock.
And make it here?
Yes.
And
right
make it
in
up for
front.
6 people.
Put our heads down there?
I can't see with my head going down.
With no blankets, the group will need to keep each other warm.
Okay, move down, guys.
Like it or not, survival requires some intimacy, even among procrastinating strangers.
See? 1 shelter.
One shelter. No one's touching my can.
We're not cooking inside.
It's like my tip. Yeah, no one tried anything. I got a knife over here.
I think we're stalling here. It's something called paralysis by analysis. You sit down, you discuss, and nothing ever gets done. You made a decision, stick to it, right or wrong. What's needed right away?
Shelter.
Let's move on that, and let's get moving. Good luck.
The men get busy with the lean-to.
That's 1.
Meanwhile, a fire needs to be built to boil the water. No one wants to get sick from lake bacteria. The trick is, matches aren't allowed.
100%. Perfect.
The first step is to gather some dry fuel that can catch easily. Birch bark provides the perfect material.
Break her up, crush it up in your hands. It's going to be a one-shot deal. If you don't get it going, you're going to be without fire.
Now it's time to make a spark. Gino takes a knife and rubs it against a rod of magnesium Liz has brought along. It's a bit of a cheat, but Gino's the boss.
Now, I'm going to throw a spark in here. Hopefully they'll catch in the char cloth.
It works like a charm.
Good go.
Yeah. Beauty.
There you go. You girls, put it in there. It's your fire. Away you
Well,
go.
it's Maria's thing. Go for it. Go for it.
It's all yours. Put it right in. Wait till it burns a bit, then you start adding your squaw wood. Don't leave this fire alone.
Okay.
All right.
Now water can be boiled. The students may be hungry, but they won't be thirsty. But will they be able to find anything worth eating in the bush? That's a question this gourmet chef wants to answer too. His name is James Spry, known as Toronto's Mad Chef. He's cooking just 2 hours away from the survival students at the Silver Springs Culinary Retreat. We've dared him to prove that wild food can become gourmet food.
It's going to be one of the most spectacular gourmet meals that you will ever have in your entire life.
The problem is he doesn't know anything about wild ingredients. That's why he's enlisted the help of a wild plant expert. Botanist Carol-Ann Lacroix is here to make sure the Mad Chef doesn't break the rules.
If we want to keep this as using as many native plants as possible, we're going to have to do a couple of substitutions.
I have an appetizer made up of wild turkey and smoked apples. Smoked apples will have some brown sugar, and then we're going to have
What the Mad Chef doesn't realize is that his botanist is not going to let him get away with anything.
curry in there as well. Green peppers?
No.
What do you mean?
Back in the bush, the students have missed breakfast, and now it's lunchtime. But it appears that spiced water is all they're going to get.
So to sweeten the water, we've been putting plants like wintergreen, sweet fern, sweet gale, hemlock.
The men have been busy building a shelter.
Now, that's perfect.
This will have to keep all of them safe tonight. Now, even a bit of tea is welcome.
All right, I'm ready for tea. Oh God, I hear you.
With the fire and the shelter finished, the team is ready for food. But few realize what Gino expects them to eat.
Well, today they're going to be eating a number of things. They're going to be foraging, and they're going to be eating little grubs that we find. We're going to start looking for snails. We're going to start looking for small fish. We're going to start looking for snakes. We're going to start looking for maggots. And this is what we'll be foraging for, and hopefully they'll eat some.
The next few hours will decide whether hunger can triumph over revulsion. The survival students have now spent 8 hours in the bush. Their stomachs are growling, having consumed nothing but wild tea. It's time to find some real food.
We're going to be dividing into two groups. We're going to be harvesting plants and other matter which can be used for our meal. But let's get started. My group, we're heading out this way. The others, you're going out with Jennifer and Mike.
There are now just 5 hours of daylight left. The pressure's on for finding some decent food. Gino leads Vic, Cliff, and Susan out of the camp. They've learned how to build a fire, but can they find something worth cooking?
I mean, Gino's sort of given us a wide variety of food that to pick from, anything from maggots to snakes, and being a vegetarian, which seems to be a big plus right now in terms of food selection that we have. I'm thinking tea. Tea's gonna be pretty big on my diet. I think breakfast, lunch, dinner, it'll be tea.
I'm going to show you a rather interesting plant here. See the golden color of the root? This is called gold thread, and the purpose of this plant is a painkiller. If you have a toothache, you simply take it and put it right on the abscessed tooth, and it simply numbs all the pain.
Vic is losing patience with the wild snacks.
My tummy's kind of rumbling.
Okay.
What about the food? Like, is there anything that we can use here to maybe make something or
what?
catch? I don't know.
Like
how would you hear? Can we catch fishes or something
Well,
like that?
we can do that, but there's another use of this water, this aquatic region. What do you see growing in here?
Lily pads.
Yeah, lily pads. Now, lily pads have great roots. We're going to need some of you to volunteer. We're going to go out there and get some roots. You ready? Who's volunteering? Susan, thank you. And Skip, you're volunteering. All three of you?
Yeah, I can do it.
Great. Let's go. Let's strip down. Let's go.
On the other side of the lake, Gino's assistant Mike Hops is looking in the water for some protein.
Oh, there's another leech. Now, come on.
I've never had a leech attached to me before.
The bottom is pretty
Except for my ex-boyfriend. But
They won't be eating food that they're used to. There's something in the field that's called plate fright. In other words, you're eating food that doesn't look like food.
oh, there's one coming this way, Clark.
There you go. Oh, and there's another one. All right, good eating. Just like anchovies. Oh, doing it. Go. All right, see ya.
On Gino's side of the lake, Susan and Vic are hard at work trying to find lily roots.
You're trying to get the large tubers. They're fairly big.
In case you guys are wondering how you collect these, all you do is just go to the lily pad itself, and you notice lily pads seem to come up in a group, right? So you just grab all the stems and you just work your way down to the bottom, and if you go down into the muck about that far, you can feel these. They grow as tubers, like this way along the ground, and then the lily pads come out the top. So you just reach down, you grab onto it and pull it right out. It's like a substitute potato.
Oh, that's very starchy.
Like this?
That's it. That's it. That's what we're looking for. Way to go, girl.
The team is finally finding food they might want to eat. But there's only one way to be sure. Cook it and have a bite.
That's it. The thing that keeps you alive is not food. It's not fire. It's not shelter. It's up here. It's your mental state. Now, when they eat, they're going to feel good, even if it's small amounts of food. So we're going after the psychological mode. We're trying to get them to think that things are fine. And so they'll behave a little better, they'll feel a little more secure, and they'll react in a more normal way.
Gino insists that people can survive on the strange foods the team is finding. But can these wild foods support an entire civilization? That's what archaeologist Ron Williamson is trying to discover. He and his team have been unearthing a 500-year-old Iroquoian village in Vaughan, Ontario. He suspects that this site may contain a secret about how natives were able to survive on wild foods.
Our job as archaeologists is to work as detectives. Some people call them time detectives. We have to kind of travel back in the past and figure out what went on here. What went on in the house? What went on in the village? What did people eat on a day-to-day basis? All of that's in the archaeological record. We have to find the ways to get at those answers.
Williamson is joined by native elder Janice Longboat. Her culture still remembers some of this ancient diet. Now she's here to see how tradition compares to science.
I see all of the medicine plants that are still here since the beginning of time. They're still here to give us food and to give us medicine. And all we need to do is learn to use them, learn to recognize them.
Meanwhile, the mad chef is having problems cooking with only wild ingredients.
What is that funny look for?
Yeah, well,
what?
We're going to have to do something else with the red and green peppers. I mean...
I'm not trying to be bold, but I have to use the red and green peppers in this dish. Otherwise, everything's going to be yellow, and it's not going to look attractive on the plate.
Okay.
So I've already given in on the first course a little bit, and I'm giving a little bit in on the second course. Can I not just throw like a little bit, like a tiny, and you're going to go way out on the limb if you say, yes, a little bit of red pepper, a little bit of green pepper.
Well, what if I found you something else?
Something red and green?
That would be colorful.
Like what?
Well, I'm thinking that we could go for a walk in the woods.
Yes.
And we'll see what we can come up with.
Something red and green.
So we're just concerned about the color as
It's the color, yes.
So this is a viola here, common name violet.
Purple flowers?
Sometimes.
But they grow in people's backyards in cities.
Yeah.
Would that be the same plant?
Well, you can have cultivated violets. These are the wild native violets.
Maybe pass me one.
Okay.
As long as they're not going to do something to me.
No, this is not a natural laxative.
Well,
that's not bad.
Absolutely.
That's almost got a bit of a lemony flavor
lemony
to it.
and a little bit of a kick to it in the back of your mouth. You know, the hot stuff goes to the back like a radish.
Yeah, yeah. That would be good for that.
Yeah. So I could see it being good in a salad, actually.
Yeah, oh yeah. Okay.
The chef is feeling more confident now, so he decides to take a chance. He wants to invite all of the survival students to a dinner made of the wild ingredients. The pressure's on. Can he succeed where the students have come up empty? As two of our teams are finding out, locating edible food in the bush is hard work. Finding enough food for even one dinner is going to take all weekend. But 500 years ago, Canada's natives had no choice. The riddle is how they did it. How could they feed hundreds of people in their villages every day? We've invited Ron Williamson to the chef's dinner party, but there's a catch. Ron needs to bring a 500-year-old native recipe. So, what did people eat here?
When I come in here myself or for other non-Aboriginal people, I always encourage them to realize this is like two-dimensional here, but you have to take the time to think about what this was like 500 years ago.
This was once a longhouse, home to 120 people. Food was stored in pits, cooked over fires, and hung to dry from the ceiling. This is where the wild became the cooked.
We find largely deer. We find small mammals like raccoon, and woodchuck, and rabbit. Here's the other major animal food that we find, which is birds.
We couldn't just run to the supermarket. So that meant that we had to be very busy and then make sure that all of that food was put away and that it wouldn't spoil.
At the dig site, the red flags provide another clue. They show where poles once stood. Some were for drying fish, and others were racks for animal skins.
And we also find a lot of fish in communities in this area. And fish, not only from the streams like sucker and catfish, but also lake community fish like whitefish and salmon.
For the main course, it's going to be some rainbow trout, and as you said, you did walk around the pond, and I think there are a couple of fish in there, and maybe we can catch one or two.
There are 200 species of fish in Canada's lakes and water systems. One of the tastiest fish is trout.
And then we're just going to dredge them in a little bit of cornmeal.
Okay.
And then we're going to drizzle a little bit of truffle oil on the top of that.
Truffle oil?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never had that before.
That's a kind of nice thing. And we're going to...
Are there different kinds, like truffles typically are found in Europe?
In Europe.
Can we use another type of mushroom that's found locally?
If we do need the oil.
Well,
you know, I don't want to be sort of like totally out there in telling you whatever we're going to do here, but we have to use the truffle oil because it's more healthier for you, okay? How is that like?
Well, I mean, I'm all for healthy.
Yeah.
However, we are trying to stick to native stuff. So I think we've got to, you know, get rid of the truffle oil.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, we'll see what goes on the plate tomorrow when you're not looking. Okay?
Oh.
Back in the bush, it seems all the students can find are spices, but no real meals.
Plant here. Here's a good one.
This is sweet gale. It tastes a bit like pepper, and in England, some use it to make beer.
So, you want to try one?
Yeah, this is the pepper stuff right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me take some of that.
Might be good for your sinuses too. Clear them up.
That sounds pretty sweet.
Sweet gale.
You like it?
Kind of bitter.
You can dry it out and it'll be a little bit stronger, like pepper.
A little bit and then we have a coulis. You know what a coulis is?
No.
It's a sauce thickened within its own juices, so there's like no starches. And we're going to use some sun-dried cranberries.
Okay.
And some white sugar.
Now, we need to substitute for the white sugar.
Well,
so what about using honey? Can we use comb honey? I brought some honey.
You brought some comb honey?
I did.
Really? Well, let's see what comb honey looks like then. And if we have well, yes, we definitely have enough honey here to do it. Okay, I will use honey, but if it doesn't work, I got to put a little bit of brown sugar in it.
Back in the wild, there are just 3 hours of sunlight left, and it appears they finally found some protein, if they have the guts to try it.
That's not an ant. Oh, no, that's a beetle. You
Well,
need
get
that
him.
one.
He's good.
Get him! Get him!
There you go. Just squish its head.
Kill it.
They're slightly salty.
There you go. Yeah. Now
Oh, God.
Is it salty?
nice. Wow, that's surprisingly disgusting. Oh, those are ants with wings? Yeah. They cost extra. That principle that Marie's using right there to wet her finger to pick the ants up, she's actually utilizing what the anteater does. He sticks his tongue out, and of course it's really wet, and just slaps it on the anthill and picks all the ants up.
I'm really hungry now. And this is just whetting my appetite.
But even finding an anthill doesn't mean you've hit the wilderness jackpot.
You can't actually survive just on ants alone. We have to take in proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and everything else to maintain ourselves. We can get the proteins out of the ants. We can get fats out of certain animals. The plants and whatnot will give us back different types of minerals and vitamins that we need. So you don't want to just concentrate on one food source.
What about spiders?
Spiders, some spiders you can eat, but like we were talking about earlier with the mushrooms, some mushrooms are poisonous, some mushrooms are edible, same with spiders. Some spiders are poisonous and some are edible. So again, I would stay away from spiders.
Unfortunately, surviving in the wild rarely means eating a well-rounded meal in one sitting. When we come back, a surprising discovery at the archaeological dig. Has Ron found his native recipe at last?
I think I found something here. Can you take a look?
It's getting near sundown, and so far, no one has found anything tasty in the bush. A day's hunger is starting to take its toll.
You're going to notice their energy level right down. They'll be grumpy, they'll be stumbling. Some of them may be staggering a bit, and not because they're intoxicated, just simply very, very tired.
Some protein could really help right now, even some wild sushi.
Minnow hunting, I'm sure you can grab maybe about 3 or 4 dozen just in there. So we're gonna need a bandana or a t-shirt. Do you see them all? They'll be like little appetizers, hors d'oeuvres.
Get anything? No, they're feisty. They move so fast.
I think you have to be at this all day, right?
That's right.
A couple small ones.
If you'd like, you can grab a couple of the mints.
So if you can imagine, if you get 6 in one scoop, if you were to sit here for an hour, I mean, you could get 50, 100 minnows, which would be enough to fill your belly. I mean,
Sure.
Wow, they're perfect little fish, aren't they?
But shouldn't I like drink a keg of beer while I'm doing this?
No, maybe not.
Raw minnow is an acquired taste, so the instructors suggest wrapping the fish in some fresh mint to take the edge off.
Dispatch. You have been officially dispatched.
Yeah, just so that they're not...
Oh, it's like a little minnow taco.
Or you can just sort of squish them, and they're fine. Did you want to try one? All right.
Wow.
There you go.
Actually, that's surprisingly disgusting.
Sort of chew on them,
Actually, if you can avoid chewing.
and then swallow.
Too late.
All better.
It's the aftertaste.
Oh.
Just think about everything. I think it's like anything. in
Is it
this
like algae
place.
taste?
It's
Like
not the actual
slimy
going
taste?
down that kills you. It's the aftertaste.
Yeah.
And then you kind of think, what the hell did I just eat?
Okay. And then we also have wonderful ingredients out here like mint. If you got an upset tummy, This is great too. At the end of the evening, you may want to just chew on a bit of this.
Yeah, you need about a hectare of that for my stomach after all this crap I've eaten all weekend. Like between the ants and the leeches and the beetle.
But we have a hectare of this, so
Yeah.
let's see
I'm
how
gonna
well...
need it. A long truck for just a little bit of mint.
Yes, yes.
Mint, I think.
And you know what else we have here, James, is sorrel.
Even the mad chef is getting worried. Will wild herbs be enough to create a delicious dinner?
Salad, it has a nice lemony taste.
Well, let's give it a little try here.
Yeah. Yeah?
I think this will go good with the rainbow trout.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll collect some of this.
Yeah.
So why aren't you picking any of these, James?
I just don't like to get my hands dirty. When we get back into the kitchen, we'll see what's going to go on.
All right.
Meanwhile, the archaeologist and the native elder are still looking for a recipe they can bring to the chef's wild dinner party. So far, it looks like dried fish will be on the menu. But this ancient village has another secret to reveal.
Look at that. Hey, Ron, you and Janice might want to see this.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I believe it's one of our indigenous species of corn. We had many, many species of indigenous corn.
This carbonized kernel certainly looks like corn, but it's Steve Monkton's job to make sure. He puts the material through a water process to find all the plants that may have been cooked here. It's an important piece of the puzzle, and exactly what Williamson was hoping to find. This plant could only be here if the natives were deliberately farming a kind of corn known as maize.
What happened is, from Mexico up the Mississippian Valley, maize was introduced, and that changed life because people could be in one place for a longer period of time.
Our survival students are discovering what natives have known for a long time. Living off forest foods is hard work. Farming is more predictable and easier to control. It allowed the natives to settle down in villages surrounded by fields of crops. Longboat likes what she sees. This scientific evidence supports knowledge handed down over the generations. Her people were farmers.
In this village, yes. We were not agricultural people, we were horticultural people. And what I mean by that is that we grew enough food for ourselves, we grew enough food for our families. We didn't grow food in mass for production to sell.
Scientists now know that corn, squash, and beans were farmed as far back as 1,500 years ago. They were often used together in what became known as the Three Sisters Soup. Meanwhile, the mad chef is still looking for his ingredients the hard way. But his botanist is certain she can find anything he needs in the wild.
So this is a wild carrot plant, sometimes called Queen Anne's lace. Right now, all of the flowers have been fertilized, so it's producing fruit. When it's in full flower, it's usually a very large, white, flat-topped white flower. The roots of these smell and taste like carrots.
Oh, let's try it.
Let's dig it up here. Let me just see if I can pull it out. Yeah. Now, I don't want you to get your hands dirty.
Yes, of course not.
So let me do this for you. Scrape this so you don't get any dirt under your fingernails.
It smells like a carrot. This is going to work great.
Oh.
So we're going to need like a couple dozen of these.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Nice, very nice.
Meanwhile, the survival students are bedding down for the night. Dinner was a bust. Tea and some wild minnows just aren't enough. They're hungry and tired, with just one day left.
Okay, now I'm really hungry.
Yeah, Twinkies.
Twinkies or ding dong?
They got like the big white icing on top, the little swirls.
I think I'm gonna lop off one of my toes and eat it.
After a sleepless night outside, the survival students wake up hungry and exhausted. It's a rough start for a group used to their morning coffee.
Does anybody want a little pick-me-up?
And wild tea doesn't help much. Their stomachs are complaining too.
I'm more than willing to eat a garter snake or cook a frog.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
The next...
Yeah. It is a good morning.
You look like you're in good spirits, Liz.
We're alive.
Good. So my group, come with me. We're heading out this way. The others, you're going out with Jennifer and Mike.
Jennifer, can we eat it?
As the students get started, the botanist is on a hunt of her own. She's looking for a few missing ingredients for tonight's wild feast. The mad chef is up early too, hoping to catch some trout for his main course.
There is one. There we go.
The pressure's on. He only needs 11 more to feed all his guests.
Look at that. Here's dinner.
Deep in the bush, it seems breakfast has arrived.
It's a meal. And we can cook them right on top of the rock. And we're not just going to take the legs, we're going to take the whole sucker.
Holy crap, that's a huge freaking...
Okay, I'm going to just grab them, okay? Too bad.
As the team gets hungrier, some are becoming skeptical. Will they ever find enough to eat in the bush?
I'm not sure if you can acquire the energy from the food that we're going to eat, because say you're eating macaroni and cheese, and one noodle is probably about the same size as a grub. And I would have to eat a hell of a lot of grubs to get the same nutritional value as I would from a big bowl of macaroni and cheese.
You're never going to know what you're eating because once you crumble it up, it's so tasty. You're going to swear it's anchovies.
I think I'm going to be swearing, but I don't know if I'm going to be swearing that it's anchovies.
Trust me. It's going to be something yummy, palatable.
That's what you said about the other stuff.
I didn't. Mike did. Mike did. I didn't.
Survival in the bush with a bunch of liars. Yeah, let's forage.
Okay, let's go foraging.
Hi, James.
Oh,
Look what I brought you from the outdoor grocery store. This is burdock.
Burdock, and what are we going to do with this?
We're going to take the burdock root and we're going to make burdock patties.
We are. You think we're really going to do that?
Back in the kitchen, there are just 5 hours left before the guests arrive, and the chef is getting worried.
This is not a real carrot, though. This seriously is not a carrot.
No, this is wild carrot, and smell this.
Okay, but I smelled it yesterday. It's still,
no.
You're still
smell
causing me too much.
Smell it again.
You can't just smell
Go on,
something.
Smell it again.
Okay, I smelled it,
Okay,
but...
and what's it smell like?
It smells like carrot.
Well, there you go.
Okay, but
So?
I don't know if we're going to use it. To be honest with you, we'd need about 200 pounds of this to feed the 12 people.
Oh, come on. You don't need 200 pounds.
Okay, not 200 pounds, but we don't have enough.
Well, why don't you just try it?
Okay, we'll try it.
So what are you doing right now?
Well, I have to correct the seasonings on my sauces that I have going here.
Okay.
So, I know this one needs a little bit of salt.
But we're not going to use salt.
What do you mean?
No.
What do you mean?
No,
come on.
No,
what do you mean? This is salt. See,
No.
it says salt.
I see that it says salt.
What are we going to use?
What about what we collected yesterday? Let me just take this away from you.
Take this away? Okay.
What about this, the colt's foot?
The colt's foot, yeah.
That we've dried out.
Yeah.
Hold on there, I saw that.
No, that's just a little joke. Come on. No.
Salt in there.
Remember whose kitchen it is. Okay, so what are we doing here?
Now, why don't we use the colt's foot as the substitute for salt?
Okay. I'm okay with this, but you're starting to push me just a little too much here, okay?
Unfortunately, colt's foot can't be found in this forest. The survivors may be fighting the battle of the bland. Or perhaps not. As Susan, Vic, and Cliff follow Gino through the woods, they come across a plant with some interesting properties. These juniper berries may help the students forget their hunger.
So the longer it ferments, the better the taste.
You like gin?
Do you like gin?
Anyone like gin
Yeah.
here?
There's gin's all right.
It's good.
Let's say that you had a dish that was rather bland.
Yeah.
All right, and rabbit tends to be bland. So let's say you snare a rabbit and it's really bland. Take the animal and stuff it with a few of these berries. They're very strong. They're very, very bitter.
So how many would you need for like stuffing?
Very, very few. Not too many.
Let's face it, the food is bland. We got to collect as much of this stuff as we possibly can.
I'd like you to wash your hands, put your hair up.
Can I wear it at an angle?
You can
a jaunty angle?
And here's a beautiful apron.
Sort of like a little dance here.
And we have juniper berries in there. And we'll just take it and we're going to strain it. This may take a little bit of correcting. We may have to add some sugar.
Oh, no. We're not going to add any sugar.
We're not going to add sugar.
It's 3 p.m., and in 3 hours, the chef will be serving dinner for 12 people. All these new ingredients are proving to be a challenge. But maybe not as difficult a challenge as finding something palatable in the bush. The survivors finally find enough to cook for dinner.
Oh, yummy.
Barbecued frog, leeches, and boiled lily root. So far, most of the team are betting on the lily root soup, but only a taste test will do. Clark volunteers to take a bite.
Grab me one. What's it taste like?
It tastes like wood, man.
Here, anyone else want
It was absolutely horrific. Like the most bitter taste. I think it actually sucked all the moisture out of our mouths and we just spat it out. And it was disgusting. That was heartbreaking.
After a weekend of leeches, minnows, frogs, and ants, the students conclude that survival in the bush may be possible, but they have no idea how to make it taste good. Not wanting to arrive at the dinner empty-handed, the students bring only the wild foods they actually liked. And now it's up to the mad chef to prove that eating wild can mean eating well. A weekend in the Canadian wilderness has left the 6 survival students starving for some civilization and some food. They've had just enough time to wash up, and now they're ready to meet the chef.
I am going to eat like you would not believe. That smells like food?
The soup is coming along nicely. Hi. How are you guys? Yeah, you're hungry?
Yeah, I brought you some green gifts for you.
Oh, excellent. I heard you guys were sleeping in the bush?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Maria was.
Maria.
Everyone says I was sleeping.
You're the
I
snore
slept maybe
queen.
an hour.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I've got some sweet gale here that we collected.
Oh, good,
Where's the
good.
spice? Like a peppery spice, something like that?
I think the sweet gale would be good, probably good in the patties. And we have some wild carrot.
That's a carrot?
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's wild. Yeah, it's not.
Here, try it.
You know.
A little tender light.
You know what, though?
How is that, Bugs?
It does taste like
It does
carrot.
taste like a carrot, but it tastes like a twig, too.
If you're like starving, you'd
No, it
probably
does,
right?
but I mean, it's,
If you were starving, it would be great.
it really,
Yeah.
Well, we are. Yeah, you know what? I think you've got everything under control.
Yeah.
So you're feeling the passion, right? But wait, hold it. We need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer? Come on, put your hand up if you want to.
There you go, Maria.
There you go. Come on over here. Come on.
Come on now.
You want to go to sleep? Come on.
Oh, this will keep you awake.
This is
we trust you, Clark.
And we've got the outfit for you.
We're hungry.
But you know what, guys? We really got to get down to work. Okay, bye. Have a nice day.
Okay.
See you soon.
Okay, you guys go relax.
Okay, see ya. Thanks very much. Appreciate that, eh? Thanks for helping me out. Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, what are we doing here? What can I do?
Well, we have some fresh thyme here. I'd like you to clean them.
Just strip them off.
Strip them off.
I have faith in dinner tonight being tastier than anything we've had in the past 2 days. Definitely when a live minnow fresh out of the water is tasty, then I'm sure this is going to be absolutely stupendous.
This is a cold split.
This is
Yeah,
the
and
salt.
salt.
And then, what is this?
Wild carrot.
Wild carrot. We can put that in there.
I'm hoping that it's a little bit better than our lily pad root that we cooked yesterday. So yeah, I'm still hungry.
The chef has planned a multi-course meal, and he's determined to turn wild food into gourmet food.
I'm really looking forward to dinner tonight, yes. I want to see what they really taste like, because when we were out in the wild, it was bad.
But the dinner can't start until Ron Williamson and his wife arrive. Ron's recipe has given the chef his first course using Indian corn, but even this has changed over the last 500 years.
The one that we were using or finding on the site, the pre-contact variety, it's much smaller. It's about 6 inches in length. It only has 8 rows, so it's a little bit different than this, but this also was present in the historic period, so I'm looking forward to tasting this.
Finally, it's time to eat. The chef has used the native corn to create a traditional soup, relying on corn, beans, and squash.
This would be the typical meal, and probably was, since corn was introduced into Ontario about 1,500 years ago. Is it good?
We never could have made this in the woods. Not with a tin can and an open fire. There's no way.
Ironically, the mad chef has taken native ingredients and given them a spicy twist.
The great thing about this meal is it reminds me of my mom's cooking in a way. It's almost like an Indian curry. It's, you know, it's got a nice thick sort of broth to it. It's got a great kick spice to this.
I heard you comment about the curry. I think you're getting the hot effect from the fresh wild leeks that we have in there, because there's absolutely no curry in it, and the pumpkin seeds that are in there as well would give you the roasted flavor that your countries are famous for, like roasting off the curry. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to accomplish this, and it feels good to hear this from in the kitchen there. Thank you.
Thank you. It tastes awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
And now for the main course, fresh trout coated in cornmeal. Fish is easy, but it's Carol Ann's burdock roots which are the tricky part. The chef has pounded the roots into a powder and mixes them together to make a kind of vegetarian patty. But he's added one ingredient that the survivors dread: lily root. Now it's time to see what it all tastes like.
Cornmeal encrusted rainbow trout.
I guess we just didn't know how to cook.
I'm so surprised that this is not flavored with salt or pepper or sugar, like nothing, all purely natural from the wild. It's amazing, isn't it?
Like, you know, you look at the burdock when it's raw, it's like dirt.
Yeah.
And then you can actually clean it and get down to the root and make something out of it that's actually pretty tasty.
Yeah.
You know, after having that kind of a baseline of our meal and then having this, I mean, it is a surprise for me to taste like all of those flavors and to really, my palate to actually enjoy it. I mean,
Wow, you did a great job.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, really. Seriously.
Fantastic.
It was a challenge, I tell you
bet.
that.
I'd like to see what you do with common household food.
Yeah, we eat crab dinner.
At the end of dinner, the guests all agree that wild food can be good, but it needs the skills of a great chef to make it happen. Canada's natives figured this out long ago, and they still decided to rely on farmed food to balance their diet.
Oh, there's hardly no meat on that.
So if you ever get lost in the bush, don't worry. There are lots of bugs to go around. No one needs to starve in the wild, although you might choose to anyway.
I mean, I think the main thing that I've learned over the weekend is that if I, like, say I'm in a plane or something and the plane's going down, I know I'm going to be a survivor, I am, like, unbuckling, ordering up some booze, and I'm going down with the plane. I don't want to be a survivor. It's disgusting. You know, you have to eat, like, all that garbage, like the plants and the fish and the frogs and what's up with eating bugs and stuff like that. No thanks. Just give me impact, dead, don't worry about it. I'll be up in heaven, eating burgers and stuff, you know? I think that's what I'll do. So I'm just gonna like completely unbuckle, order up a couple of gins, go down with the plane. I think that's what I learned. I'm serious.
There is an Inuit legend still told in the north about a girl who was forced by her father to marry her dog. Soon after, she gave birth to a great litter of children, half human and half dog. The girl loved her children but craved revenge for being forced to marry. One day when her father brought them meat, she cried out, "Eat him, my children." The litter obeyed, devouring him. Now, with no one to feed them, the dog children would have to hunt to survive. Some traveled inland and became the Red Man. Others went east and became the White Man. The rest moved north and became the Inuit. The girl and her dog husband remained behind, and having no meat, they starved to death.
Of all the animals who live in the most hostile environment on Earth, only one has made the difference between man's survival and extinction. This is the story of the ancient, essential relationship between man and the only domestic animal in the Arctic. For thousands of years, the Canadian Inuit dog, the dog we call a husky, has adapted to survive the worst excesses of both the weather and man in a frozen northern Galapagos. An Arctic explorer once wrote, "No other animal in the world has to suffer so much from hunger while having to toil daily to the very limit of its endurance. Such is life for the working dog of the midnight sun." At the end of the last ice age, the land bridge between Asia and North America disappeared. But the ancestors of the Inuit were an ingenious maritime people who crossed the open water in skin boats. With them came their dog. Rather than turn south, the Inuit chased the Arctic coastline. For 200 years, they wandered eastward until they could go no further. The word Inuit means the living ones who are here. And here, in the high Arctic, over 40 centuries ago, one journey ended and another began. The Inuit have a saying that a hunter without dogs is only half a hunter. As aggressive partners in the hunt, dogs would surround a polar bear and hold it at bay until it was killed at close range. Muskox were herded into their defensive circle and then slaughtered. Caribou were wounded and then pursued, run down, and killed by the dogs. His uncanny sense of smell was essential to finding the seal's breathing hole, hidden under thick snow. Narwhal and walrus, harpooned in open water, were dragged onshore by the dogs. A successful hunt meant meat for everyone. Failure spelled starvation. About 1,000 years ago, the Inuit dog's strength and stamina were finally harnessed to the sled. Soon, new legends began to be told about the pulling machine of the North. Suddenly, the Arctic ice unpredictably cracked wide open. The dog children of the East had returned. The white man had learned of the Inuit from the Ojibwa of Labrador, who called them Huskema, meaning eaters of raw flesh. The name evolved to become Eskimo, then Eski, and finally Husky. For the Inuit dog, the arrival of the white man was the beginning of a long nightmare. As the white man flooded the north, he brought his own dogs with him. Infectious diseases to which the Inuit dog had no resistance killed thousands. More ominous was rampant crossbreeding with southern dogs, which threatened to contaminate the entire breed. By the end of the gold rush in the more accessible western Arctic, the Inuit dog had become extinct. But in the eastern Arctic, where isolation remained impregnable to progress, the dog maintained its pure bloodline and its dominance as a working dog well into the 20th century. And then the North changed forever. On the north coast of Baffin Island, 1,000 people live in the community of Pond Inlet. Only 40 years ago, there was nothing here but a police outpost and a solitary church. By 1960, relocation of the Inuit people into communities scattered across the Arctic was at its height. At the same time, the snowmobile appeared. Fast, efficient, and cheap to operate, the snowmobile quickly replaced the working dog, making it a useless liability in a modern Arctic. Mercifully, many dogs were shot. Many more were simply chained to the sea ice and forgotten. Once there were over 20,000 purebred Inuit dogs in the Arctic. By 1970, less than 200 remained. The wolf-like howl of the wild once echoed loudly across the barrens. Today, it is a rarely heard lament, as rare as the breed itself. The Inuit say that the better the weather, the more dangerous the north becomes. But after 3 months of virtual darkness and 7 months of sub-zero cold, spring has returned to breathe new life into the land. Like the polar bear and the caribou, animals hardened by centuries of Arctic adaptation, these Inuit dogs have weathered another winter on 3-meter-thick sea ice outside of Pond Inlet. Soon the pack will be let loose on a nearby island to fend for themselves, foraging for fish carcass and small game. It will be the only time when they're truly free. These are Charlie Enurak's dogs. Charlie is a rare breed himself, one of a few Inuit hunters in the area to maintain a purebred team of sled dogs and use them in the traditional way. For Charlie, it is the only way.
I have to survive, and I have to have my children and my family survive along with my dogs, because that is my life. I think dogs are part of our lives. They are part of the land. They're part of the landscape.
Charlie's wife always worries when he hunts by snowmobile, but traveling with his dogs, she knows he will always find his way home. The purebred Inuit dog is the product of a harsh, ancient process of natural selection, where dogs with any physical or social defects were destroyed. In the Arctic, a defective dog is a dangerous dog, and a liability to the whole team. On the Barrens, only strength and endurance matter, and this dog is a weightlifter, not a sprinter. In fact, Dog sled racing is a sacrilege, a sport for bizarre crossbreeds, which usually includes a dash of greyhound. The Inuit dog is neither big nor heavy, but a balance dictated by the ruthless environment. Males average 38 kilograms and stand 62 centimeters at the shoulder. Females are about 20% lighter and 10% shorter, giving them a distinct survival advantage. Females also tend to be the best lead dogs. Out front, the lead dog is the quickest and most responsive to voice commands, setting the pace, changing direction, and inspiring the team to pull. When the hunt is over, the dogs are always the first to be fed. The Inuit dog is naturally carnivorous and eats raw meat and fish exclusively. This makes the Inuit dog closer to wild canids like the wolf or coyote than any other dog. Watching an Inuit dog eat gives a new meaning to the term fast food. Amazing quantities of food can disappear down its throat in seconds. Meat, skin, guts, bones. It will consume everything except the liver of the polar bear or fresh shark meat, which is toxic. The dog must possess a genetic memory of starvation, because it is capable of digesting any animal product that's available. Skin clothing, kayak covers, rope, leather boots, even its own harness. In times of extreme food shortage, it might even turn on its own. Its preferred and normal food, however, comes from sea mammals like seal or walrus. High in vitamins, protein, and fat contents of over 60%, this diet would kill any other domestic dog. The Inuit dog can survive for days, weeks, even months without food, but they must have water. Fortunately, in the Arctic, there is no lack of ice or snow. Dogs have been known to die from overeating after an extended food shortage. But if they're fed, on average, once every 2 days, then, as Charlie says, they will take you there and back. Guaranteed.
Long, long ago, the dog of an Inuit hunter died. His master mourned him and vowed that one day they would be reunited in heaven. Down the coast, another dog died from beatings and starvation. This Inuit hunter cursed his dog in death, because now he would have to drag the sled back home alone. the two dogs met in heaven. The first dog kept looking towards the earth, waiting for his master to join him, while the second dog was ready to run and hide. Together they agreed to guard the gates of heaven, and whenever the soul of a hunter who had loved his dogs arrived, he would be greeted with wagging tails and allowed to enter. But the hunter who had beaten his dogs would be turned away by growls and snarls, and forced to wander forever over the endless white ice.
The relationship between man and the Arctic's only domestic animal is a confusing paradox. Here, survival of the fittest may be nature's way, but survival of the friendliest must be man's way. These are Ken McCrory's dogs. Ken is a leading authority on the Inuit dog. From his home in Iqaluit, he has studied the dog for 20 years and traveled over 35,000 kilometers with his own dog teams.
Yeah. Stop it, stop it. Stop that.
Well, there's no question about it that the dogs can be very aggressive to each other.
Attaboy.
They're a product of a very hostile environment, but normally if they are not socialized and handled by humans from a very early age, approximately 3 weeks, I say, they will become quite wild and unmanageable.
To breed the best possible partner for the hunt, the Inuit encouraged aggressive behavior in their dog. But within their partnership, there was no place for a wild dog, and abnormal aggression was immediately killed off. In the past, dogs were never tied up, allowing them to interact freely and naturally with both man and the pack. Any dog that would not come when called was either starved or shot. In the modern Arctic, by law, all dogs must be chained up, creating a situation, especially amongst younger males, where aggression is stockpiled, ready to explode at any moment.
There are stories that constantly circulate about the dogs attacking and killing people, and that is, in fact, something that does happen. It is almost exclusively children, or in a few cases, it is seniors over 65 years of age. And I think there's something there that the dogs are acting out their predatory instincts.
When the white man saw an Inuit dog for the first time, they thought it was part wolf. In fact, all dogs evolved from wolves, but only this dog acts like one. When raised as a pack, Inuit dogs settle into a hierarchy identical to wolves. The pack is a family unit, with rankings based on strength, not seniority. Fighting between young males is fierce, but rarely fatal, except when the appropriate submissive behavior is not displayed at the right time. If a challenge continues, several adults will step in and kill the upstart. In the wolf pack, only the dominant alpha male and female mate, but the entire pack nurtures and protects the litter. In the Inuit dog pack, all will mate, and if more than one litter is born at the same time, chaos and cannibalism may soon follow. The killing of pups by aggressive males seeking to establish territorial dominance, or by females attempting to increase the food supply of their own litter, is common. The female raises her pups alone and is extremely protective, challenging any male, regardless of size, who comes too close. Even a pup who has died of natural causes will be fiercely protected. If pups can survive to 6 weeks, their growth rate accelerates, and by 6 months they have the size and strength to survive their first Arctic winter and to start muscling their way into the pack hierarchy. Within a dog hierarchy, like in Ken McCrory's team, the alpha male or boss dog rules the pack. For this position, no training is required. Life at the top is perilous, but it does have its benefits, like the first serving of fresh walrus flipper.
The boss dog is selected by the dogs through a combination of size or aggression or maybe birthright. This dog will be the boss. I make sure that the boss dog has an opportunity to display dominance to the other dogs, and but at the same time, I let him know that I'm fully his boss, and then I don't have to worry about any of the other ones. He'll take care of them.
Although he is the largest and strongest, a good boss dog rarely starts a fight, but is always prepared to finish one. And rarely will the boss dog make a good lead dog. When the team is harnessed, he will step aside and allow the lead dog to take its place. However, off the sled, it is brawn, not brains, that dominates.
Hi, boy. How you doing? Huh? Let's have a look at that foot. Oh, yeah, look, your claws are growing again. Boy, I gotta cut them again. Your hairy feet. Yep. There you go. How about cuts? You got any cuts around your ears? You get cuts because your brother chews on your head sometimes. I definitely think of them as animals and as working animals, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't have a relationship with them. They are definitely not pets, though, and I don't treat them like pets. They don't come in the house. They eat raw meat. They live outdoors at 40 below zero, and I try to keep them as much as possible in a traditional manner. How's your teeth? Oh, they're getting broken. No, they look good. They look good. For a 6-year-old dog, you got pretty good teeth. That's a good fella. Brush every day, eh? There you go. That's a good boy.
1,000 miles south of the Arctic Circle, Minnesota is a long way from home. But if you point the dog north, it's a good bet he'll make it home, probably without stopping. These are Paul Shirky's dogs. Paul is also a rare breed, a modern-day Arctic explorer whose dogs have pulled him to the North Pole 5 times, more than any man in history.
The ability and the drive to pull is locked in there so deeply, it only needs a little bit of tweaking for that instinct to kick in. You can actually see it happen when these puppies are about 8 months old. We'll harness them up alongside seasoned veterans. And off they go, and they'll kind of get pulled along and get twisted and tangled for the first few hundred yards, and then suddenly, boom, it's like a light goes off in their head.
Perfect day for dog sledding.
Summers are cool in Minnesota, but for the dogs, this is still the banana belt. Other than their tongues and feet pads, the Inuit dog has no sweat glands, another Arctic adaptation. Paul runs his dogs only if the temperature's right, to keep muscles stretched and the team socialized in preparation for the job ahead. Like the call of the wild, the North Pole has beckoned explorers for centuries. It is the perfect place to take an Inuit dog, and foolish to go without them. In April of 1986, along with co-leader Will Steger, an international team, 5 sleds, and 49 Inuit dogs, Paul Shirky began his first trek to the pole.
I don't know if any one of those expeditions would have interested me in the least had it not been done in the company of sled dogs. The mystique of being engaged with a team of dogs where your survival and well-being is so closely interlinked with theirs, and a huge measure of the reward that comes from those treks is seeing the dogs thrive in their native environments.
Ahead lay 500 kilometers of buckled sea ice, windstorms, whiteouts, and the unpredictability of a land made only of ice. It was indeed a typical environment for the Inuit dog.
They are true machines. They're just pulling fools. They get in a harness and boom, you could do 26, 30-hour days and they'd never stop. The colder the better as far as the dogs are concerned during the working day. Of course, we've been out there with them pulling in temperatures that have exceeded 70 below zero Fahrenheit, and they don't miss a beat.
"56 days after their journey began, Shirky's team made history as the first unsupported expedition by dog sled to reach the North Pole. Amongst them was the first woman to reach the pole, Anne Bancroft.
It's a great day for us. We are deeply indebted to the 49 Huskies and Canadian Eskimo dogs who pulled us so long and hard to bring us here at the top of the world. They are the real heroes of this journey.
Paul Shirky's run to the pole followed in the footsteps of the greatest explorer of the 20th century. Commander Robert E. Peary had spent 20 years in the Arctic and knew the full value of the Inuit dog. In 1909, on his third attempt to reach the North Pole, he took 246 dogs with him. Not all were destined to return. As supplies dwindled and fewer dogs were needed to pull the sleds, the surplus were fed to his men and the remaining dogs. One by one, the weaker dogs were culled and consumed. After a grueling 3-month journey, only 52 dogs remained. On June 10th, Peary wrote in his diary that he had finally reached the pole, a claim that has never been confirmed. Two years later, in 1911, the great race to reach the South Pole first became a contest between Norway's Roald Amundsen and Robert Scott of Great Britain. Like Peary, Amundsen understood that dogs were invaluable to polar travel and set out with 52 of them. Scott chose to use ponies instead, and when these died in the Antarctic blizzards, he and his men were left with no choice but to pull the sleds themselves. Amundsen reached the South Pole first, hoisted his flag, and returned to his base camp 1,000 kilometers away with 11 dogs. The other 41, like Peary's, had been killed and consumed. A month later, Scott reached the pole to find Amundsen's flag. On the return journey, exhausted from pulling the sleds, weakened by lack of food, and only 15 kilometers short of their base camp, Scott and his team perished. Paul Shirky's kennel in Ely, Minnesota is home to 60 purebred Inuit dogs. He breeds them solely as working dogs for polar exploration and a new phenomena, explorography, the science of taking an adventure rather than a vacation. In the spring of 1999, Paul made his 5th journey to the North Pole with a group who paid for the experience. Appropriately, it was the last expedition of the century called the Great Age of Exploration.
I certainly will fight tooth and nail to ensure that there's a proper place for the Eskimo dog in the 21st century. And I think there will be, but if there's not, I'd rather not see the breed be obliged to carry on stuck on a chain in someone's backyard and never being allowed to do the thing which it loves most to do, and that is to pull in the snow.
Minnesota is a long way from home, but for the working dog of the North, Paul Shirky has found a new place for its legacy, one that he fully intends to pass on to his own breed. Like the frigid, drying winds that scour down from the pole, to the naked eye, the Arctic is a constant, a natural fortress against change. Yet it could not protect the Canadian Inuit dog. Over 100 years ago, Canada's official dog registry, the Canadian Kennel Club, recognized the Inuit dog as a pure indigenous breed. In 1966, the last litter to be registered was born, and in 1976, only one sterile male remained on their list. What nature could not do, disease, technology, and crossbreeding had, at least officially, defeated. To some, the disappearance of a living cultural icon and an inseparable part of the Arctic landscape was unthinkable, and a desperate search began to confirm or deny the demise of the Canadian Inuit dog. The Inuit call him the Dog Man. In 1975, Bill Carpenter, a biologist based in Yellowknife, embarked on a personal crusade to find the last survivors of a once proud, now dying breed. His journey took 2 years, searching the remote eastern Arctic, where some Inuits still lived the way of the land. Here, Carpenter found 41 dogs, isolated from the juggernaut of progress, and whose genetic makeup remained pure to the breed. These are Bill Carpenter's dogs. Bill returned to Yellowknife and began a controlled breeding program with his 41 survivors.
So what this project is all about is that we are breeding back the indigenous or aboriginal breed of dogs that was with the Thule culture of Inuit. This male here, he's an exceptional dog. He'll be one of the stud dogs used in the first generation breeding program. He's only 6 months old now. He's just about reached his full growth.
Ahead lay the task of producing at least 3 generations before the breed could again be registered and Bill could claim that the Inuit dog had been saved. Food was a major problem. The dogs were ravenous, eating 70 tons of it a year. Several times the project was put in jeopardy due to the threat of starvation. But like his dogs, Carpenter persevered.
We're documenting all of the various characteristics and growth rates of these dogs, which has never been really done before, so that they'll be registered again. There's no reason that in 2 or 3 generations we won't have 200 or 300 of them all registered and producing a original line of dogs again from this part of the north.
In 1986, 10 years after Bill began his crusade, the Inuit dog was again registered with the Canadian Kennel Club. But his success remains perilous. Over the years, Bill had sent hundreds of dogs back to the Inuit only to have them disappear as casualties of crossbreeding. But others have endured to become a living reminder to a new generation of Inuit of their past and their future.
I used to talk to a lot of elders.
they would tell stories, and that got me curious as to what a dog team would look like. I wanted to see it for myself and actually live it, part of my culture that I never saw when I was growing up. And eventually I got my own team.
These are Mika Mike's dogs. Mika Mike owns an adventure tour company in Iqaluit, taking advantage of a new and long overdue interest in the north. To her, maintaining the purity of the Inuit dog breed is both good for her soul and good for business.
I've never used a mixed breed before, but Joshua, who is one of my guides that we go out together with our teams, he had mixed breed, and he found even on a hot day like this, they won't last as long as the purebreds.
Today, on the sea ice, the temperature hovers around 2 degrees Celsius. In the Arctic, hot has always been gauged differently than in the south. Mika bred her dogs from a single female, and the offspring, both children and grandchildren, now make up her team.
They're much similar to wolves in their social structure and how they act. Like the young ones that I have, that I've been training for the past year and a half, are now testing the older dogs and challenging them, trying to figure out where they fit in a team.
For Mika Mike, the Inuit dog is an inseparable part of her own time and place. Now, she has plans to build another dog team to meet the growing demands of northern tourism.
Part of the northern experience is the dog team, which our people have used for thousands of years. The best thing I like is, like last night, it was pretty sunny, peaceful, no sound, no motor sound, and all you can hear is water splashing from the dogs running and the sled. That's what I really enjoy.
After a 3-hour trip by dog sled, a group of 6th grade students has left Iqaluit behind for a more traditional classroom on the tundra. For 4 days, they'll learn about the land and its history, but for the most part, they'll learn about the Inuit dog. These are Mattie McNair's dogs. Each spring for the past 6 years, Mattie has brought school kids here to give them their first real experience with the dog of their ancestors.
The kids were asking me more about what kind of dog this was, and for them, they call all these dogs husky dogs.
Which one's yours?
They don't really see a difference between one that's half German Shepherd and half Canadian Eskimo dog. They're all husky dogs to them.
Along with her husband Paul, Mattie owns an adventure tour company and 29 Inuit dogs, the largest team in the region. She too has traveled thousands of kilometers by dog sled, and in 1997 led the first all-women's expedition to the North Pole. It is because of her dogs that she has also become a teacher.
In the beginning, the children are very hesitant. And they're very afraid of dogs. You would think that there's so many dogs around they wouldn't be. But actually they are quite afraid of the dogs. They don't know them. And I bring the puppies along so that they can sort of interact with the puppies and learn more about how dogs interact.
That'll be safe in there.
For most Inuit children, the sled dog is both an ancient relic and a modern mystery. The snowmobile is all they know, and it doesn't bite. For these kids, the best way to learn about the Inuit dog is to experience it, and then let them figure out the rest for themselves.
And when we come into Carmarthen, it's very bumpy. It might take two of you to hold on to, because they just love pulling. And they love pulling you too. They won't bite you. They're very friendly. They're just very excited. And they want you to hurry up. So maybe two of you. Bring them up to their harness, all right? Let's go up to their harness.
And after they've gone over and harnessed the dogs and they realize that the dog is just trying to lick them or sniff them, they're not trying to bite them, they start to relax more. And by the end of the 4 days, oh, the kids are all going over and getting dogs and bringing them over and putting them into harness, and that's really wonderful.
With your legs. Okay. Over the head.
In a region where 56% of the population are under the age of 25, living on the land is an important experience for these kids and the dog to share. If the Inuit dog does have a future, it will be this generation who decides. For now, their first contact is nothing less than a real-life lesson about the wild, unpredictable land they call home.
This dog is enthusiastic or overly enthusiastic about everything. It's as if this dog has really a foot in the wild, but they're also a domesticated dog, and working with them is recognizing that they are both.
Some things about the Arctic will never change, and some things always will. In a land both endless and unequivocal, life goes on. Like its master, the Canadian Inuit dog has proven adaptable to change, but never again will it dominate as the working sled dog of the North. That time is gone, forever. Today, the Inuit dog is hunted by the future, a future that may well be its past. Strict, purebred breeding will protect it, but without purpose, as a working dog, it will cease to be an Inuit dog. Since the dawn of time, man's presence in the Arctic owes its existence to the Canadian Inuit dog. A debt that deserves to be honored before the midnight sun sets for the last time on the most loyal animal in nature, and only the legend remains.
Standing by the gates of heaven, the dogs waited. And whenever the soul of a good hunter who had loved his dogs approached, he was greeted with wagging tails and allowed to enter. But the hunter who had beaten his dogs was turned away by growls and snarls and forced to wander forever over the endless white ice.